Yesterday we were talking about respect and gratitude. These are two very basic qualities and extremely necessary qualities for one who is a practitioner. I should also just specify here what we're talking about to be more clear. When we say respect, we're not talking about having a general consideration towards others. That's not what respect means. We're talking about respect for wisdom, respect for qualities. So it's respect for those who are truly worthy of respect by way of their qualities. And gratitude also is referring in particular to one's teacher, but also to anybody who has helped you in a real way. So these qualities are at the very base of what is necessary to be able to practice Dhamma, to remove impurities and to go for wisdom. There is even a specific list of all the things that prevent one from progressing in the practice. And respect and gratitude going along with it is listed at the very base of the things that prevent you from progressing. Technically speaking, it's actually the second lowest. The lowest would be shamelessness, having no sense of shame. But they're both more or less at the bottom. So one who has no respect has no possibility of really progressing any further correctly until he removes the lack of respect. And yes, these two simple qualities are not so easy to have, and especially in our culture, in our society, we are not really shown the necessity of having gratitude and respect. In fact, most of the things that we are taught or that we see around us teach us to not have respect, to not have gratitude. And one reason for that is that these values are not given much weight in our society. We don't have a culture that really values respect, honor to people who are worthy of honor. And we don't necessarily have good models either who are truly a person in our environment who is worthy of respect, who is wise. Our parents might be too busy to be around much. Our teachers might be just there for the money and the holidays. So we don't have somebody who is worthy of our respect or who will inspire this respect naturally in us. Nor do we have anyone telling us about the importance of these qualities. Rather, the main lesson that we learn is, I deserve respect and everybody should respect me, regardless of who I am. We use this word respect with regard to the people who should respect us very lightly and very easily, but not so much for how we should have respect. Now I mean real deference, real honor of somebody who is higher than us. This would be asking us to bow down to somebody, and I won't bow down to anybody. Hey, teachers, leave those kids alone. We don't need no education. So coming from this society, from this culture, we have to come to try and learn Dhamma. And this goes opposite everything we have been told. Everything that our culture has led us to do, has encouraged us in, is opposite. Don't be selfish, be selfless. Don't be greedy, be generous. Don't be a rebel. Have respect, have gratitude. All these things should not be so difficult. They should not create such a resistance in us, but many times they do. In theory, we might like the sound of it, but when it comes to practicing them, that goes against what we want, or that goes against what we're used to. So instead of the teaching being easy for us to accept, it grates against every nerve. Every step of the way is a mountain to climb over, and it's made all the worse by our inability to be soft, our inability to just change. Anytime there is a new idea that presents itself going totally opposite to an idea that we used to have, we stick to our own idea and we don't let go of it. So that means that every step of the way is like a kind of battle instead of it being simple. And remember, these new ideas and new values that we have to accept are as simple as the values of gratitude and respect. It's not asking us to believe in something incredible or to have blind faith in whatever anybody tells us to do, but stickiness to our ideas and our habits nevertheless prevents us from being able to really accept and apply even really the values of gratitude and respect. When you lack respect and when you lack gratitude, it's always based on pure selfishness, being so preoccupied with your own self, with what your own self desires, with what bothers yourself, that you can't acknowledge, you can't appreciate how much somebody might have helped you, or what they had to sacrifice themselves in order to help you in such a way. You can't see the value of what somebody gives you as its true value, because you're always only busy with whatever pleases me is good and whatever displeases me is bad. There's an old Jataka story, a Buddhist folk story, about a prince who falls into a river during a raging storm and gets rescued by an ascetic who lives on the banks of the river, along with 3 animals, a rat, a snake, and a parrot. And so all 3 of them are rescued, and the ascetic brings them back to his cabin, and then he warms them up and gives them food and drink, and the prince notices that he feeds the animals first. So of course he's feeding them first because they're the weakest and will be the first ones to die or to become very sick. But the prince becomes offended. How dare you? Don't you know who I am? How could you serve them first instead of me? I am your king. So I really like this example as an example of ingratitude. The guy has just been rescued, pulled out of the water. He was going to drown. This man has saved his life. He should be in debt to him for the rest of his life. But now he becomes the enemy of this poor ascetic and he desires to kill him. So this pure ingratitude, because of as soon as the ascetic does something that he interprets as being an insult, something that is disagreeable to him, he becomes the enemy of the guy. It doesn't matter that he has saved him, has pulled him out of the water, has saved his life. So that's how this purely selfish point of view stops us completely from appreciating what good somebody has done for us or being really respectful of somebody. The other main factor that prevents it is fault finding. Like when you are busy always fault finding with others, then you end up not being able to really appreciate their good qualities because all you see is the fault. All you see is what pisses you off. You never get to just see them as they are or see their qualities for what they are. There's another story that illustrates this point very well, which is the story of a young novice monk who was put under the care of an elder monk as his teacher. And so how that worked was that the student monk would be continually with the teacher, learning from him and serving him in return. And one day it happened that they went into town for alms food. So they went through the streets from house to house, and at the first house where somebody gave them some food, the teacher was given a particular kind of rice porridge. So he thanked the donor for the rice porridge and they continued on their way. And then, much to the surprise and shock of the young student, his teacher, instead of waiting until they had gone out of the village to find a quiet place to sit down and politely and slowly eat the food, he stopped right there in the street and tipped the bowl back and started drinking down the rice porridge right there. And so it was all leaking down the sides of his mouth, and he was just continuing to guzzle it until it was finished. And then the teacher looked around and saw the look of disgust on the face of the young boy, who was thinking to himself in disgust, how can this man be a respected teacher? How can he be really accomplished when he eats so greedily? The teacher spoke to him, saying, "What are you thinking, young man? Don't you know that this lack of respect, this fault-finding attitude, means you are completely blocked? You can never progress. As long as you keep this fault-finding attitude, as long as you have this lack of respect, I cannot teach you anything. It serves nothing." So the young boy realized that his old teacher knew exactly what he was thinking. So he fell to his knees and asked pardon. He said, "I'm so sorry, I was wrong, it's true." And then only at that point did his teacher explain to him that in fact he was sick, his stomach was sick, and this very food that he had just been given was the medicine that would settle his stomach and cure the sickness. So of course he didn't want to hesitate in taking the medicine so as not to end up vomiting in the street or something like that. And in fact he was Arahan. This story is such a nice example of how easily the mind finds fault with somebody else, so easily points the finger of blame at them, as we ourselves in turn make ourselves unhappy and suffer on account of what somebody else does. When our mind is in the habit of fault-finding in this way, looking for faults in others instead of looking back at ourselves for our own problems, it becomes so difficult to see the goodness in others, to have respect for their qualities, because even actions that they do through good qualities can be interpreted as faults. Like the example of the prince interpreting the good action of the hermit who had rescued him as an insult to him. Or again, in regard to a teacher and a student, if somebody reprimands us for something that is wrong in us, if we have a fault-finding mind, we can interpret that as, they have something against me. They have a grudge against me. That's their problem. And me, I have no problem. No. I have no problem. But if our aim is to correct ourselves, we have to realize that we have to put our own house in order before blaming somebody else for their faults. We have to correct ourselves first before blaming others. Do we become a better person because of blaming others? Do we become a better person out of having no respect for our teachers? Do we become a good person in this way? No, the more we continue to act in this way, the more we feed our own selfishness. The more self we have, the more we need more self to defend the self. And on it goes. So to summarize, respect and gratitude are at the very base of practice in Dhamma. They're the very foundations of any practice of qualities and working on oneself. However, we are not taught these values in our society, and we don't have good models of people who inspire respect in us. So even these basic qualities, when we come to practice Dhamma, can be difficult to acquire, and we have resistance to practicing them. To help to let go of them, we can understand that lack of respect and lack of gratitude for those worthy of respect and worthy of gratitude are never based on anything good. They are only based on pure selfishness, which prevents us from appreciating the good that somebody has done for us, as with the example of the prince who was rescued by the hermit, and fault-finding especially, which prevents us from appreciating and recognizing the good qualities of others, as with the example of the young student and his older teacher. So if we want to correct ourselves, we have to stop blaming others, to work on ourselves first, and of course to be extremely grateful and respectful towards anybody who has the ability to guide us in how to do this.